Welcome to I Do What I Do, where we explore how and why folks do what they do to forge their path and create fulfilling, squiggly careers. I'm Zara Bartels, once a dancer, now a creative operator. And in this first season, we're in London, once my home for many years. So whether you're an aspiring entrepreneur, a creative soul, or just curious about what makes people tick, have a listen. You'll be inspired to do what you do better. Let's go.
That's me saying we're starting. Shelly Maxwell, good morning.
Hello, Zara Bartels.
I'm so excited you're here. Thank you and welcome to I Do What I Do.
Love it.
It took us a little while to get here, but we got here. I'm going to talk through your bio, Miss Dancer, choreographer, movement director, and writer. You and I met Lion King days. You have never failed to fucking amaze me, frankly. You just met Andres, the sound engineer. The thing that came to my mind is she's like one of those annoying people that everyone likes to work with. No one has a bad word to say about Shelley Maxwell.
And long may it last.
It will, because that's your authentic self. And I think that's what's really amazing about what you do and how you do it. But we'll talk about all the things that you do, which are contemporary dancer. That's where you started. As I said, we met Lion King. Now you're a movement choreographer. Not a movement choreographer. You're a movement director and a choreographer.
Well, maybe it should be movement choreographer.
I mean, you probably are a movement choreographer, to be honest.
Choreographer. That's excellent, Zara. I've never heard that
You're
title
welcome.
before. I might steal that.
But actually, I think that's what you are when you really think about what you do, and which we should explain to the people in a minute, but I want to go through all these fancy things. So, theatre, film, and TV, you've worked across. I remember watching Equus. How many years ago was that?
Wow, that was like 2000, maybe 19, 18?
Right.
19, I think we're 19.
Okay, what you did with Equus was phenomenal, honestly. And that's when I looked at it and I went, oh, my friend is talented. I was like, oh, she's that girl. And then you continue being that girl, because then more recently, Secret Life of Bees, you are the original choreographer for Get Up, Stand Up, Bob Marley musical. You recently did Time Traveler's Wife with music by Joss Stone and somebody else, I forget.
Dave Stewart from the Eurythmics.
That dude. Nobody important really, just the Eurythmics and Joss Stone. Oh, you worked with the RSC as well, most recently Love's Labour's Lost. You've done Milma's Tale. I did not say that correctly. Malima's Tale. That was also another beautiful piece.
Thank you.
Also because it was the story of an elephant. You know how I stay with my elephants. And
Same.
You did an excellent job on
Zara.
portraying Malima. August in England with Lenny. Hell, why am I not remembering anybody's names? It's because it's early, which is why we're drinking water. Probably good to be not drinking rub. Benethea's Place. You choreographed that dance piece in the Marvels movie recently. And Nancy Boys on Prime. We need that to hurry up and come out.
I know.
Prime Video. National. Romeo and Juliet that went on Sky as well. You did 12th Night. Anthony Cleopatra. And then I stopped writing. When someone throws all of that at you. And that was probably what? Most 5 years?
What, you mean all of that?
Yeah, that was like the last... Because
No,
Equus
that
is
was-
probably...
This journey started in 2016.
Yes, but I meant what I just shouted out.
Oh, what you just shouted out. Yeah,
Oh,
yeah,
6
that would
years.
be it.
Yeah, which means there's a whole bunch of stuff that you've done. And that's the nature of your job, which I would love you to explain as soon as I stop rambling. But how does it feel when someone just throws that at you? Be like, weird vomit. Your amazing accolades.
I don't know, it's weird because everything is a memory, right? Because it's all lived experience. Someone's throwing your CV at you, but what you're remembering is the experiences. It's, as you're doing it, I'm not thinking, that sounds mega. Oh, yeah, that was epic from the standpoint of having worked at the National Theatre or working for the Royal Shakespeare Company. Instead, it's like I'm remembering directors, I'm remembering the company members, I'm remembering the work. And I think when you're inside of something, you forget how grand it may seem externally because it just becomes part of work. So the novelty isn't there. I think it's the same like being a dancer, and I'm sure that you can testify to that, where you fight to get to a point. So you get into a West End show, you get into a show as big as The Lion King. But when you're inside it, you realize the reality is you are doing 8 shows a week. You are turning up to do what you love, which is to dance, which is your passion. But your passion then becomes your job. So like the perspective changes. So I think for me, I'm appreciative of the list and I'm appreciative of the CV. But in a way, it's a reminder to me that that thing that everyone says, you're only as good as your last job.
Yeah.
I don't really buy into it because I think that you will do work that happens many years in the past that was phenomenal work, and maybe you don't quite do projects that kind of allow you to expand yourself in that way. So it's not that you're as good as your last job, but perhaps it is that you're not as good as you need to be as yet. And so therefore, for me personally, I'm always going, what's next? Because I want to be able to challenge myself to make better work.
Yeah.
So the list is a reminder that I'm able and capable, but it's also a reminder that I still want to do more.
Yes. Shelley, that's why people like working with you. Jesus Christ. Off the bat, deep and amazing and so thoughtful. We have to explain what a movement director is, or now as we will call it, movement choreographer,
Movement
before we forget.
choreographer, that term is in my opinion. Yeah, man, I love that term.
Yeah.
Yeah. This is always like a big discussion, argument, even amongst people who are movement directors and choreographers. I always put it simplistically, or what I think is a simplistic way. Movement direction is what you do when you're working with actors or people or humans to help them to embody movement gestures, ways in which they are putting together their character. So you're helping them to understand how your character might move. Or it might be that you are doing a lot of spatial work. So you're helping in a theatrical sense, in a play, you're helping movement parts literally on stage, bodies and furniture, and helping it to come together in a way that's going to assist in storytelling. What I think movement direction doesn't encompass is dance sequences.
Right.
And
like
I'm going to
what
say,
you did in the Marvels, which
Yeah.
is a big dance sequence.
Yeah.
Or Get Up Stand Up, where you were choreographer.
Exactly. And I use the word sequence because you can still, I think, movement direct someone to dance. If a character is like, in the scene, this character dances to music.
They're dancing in their house.
They dance in the house. So that's movement direction. But if it's like, in this scene, there are a bunch of people who start doing a dance routine, that's choreography.
Yeah.
Because then you're actually stitching together the movement to create a sequence, and that's choreographic.
Yeah.
So for me, being a choreographer is doing movement or dance sequences that are stitched together, and movement direction is much more kind of organic in a way.
And you also are an intimacy director.
Yes.
And what does that mean for the people out there?
It's a really important role.
It's becoming more prevalent.
Much more prevalent now. And yeah, there's a lot of debate on it with regards to the acting community, because you have actors from the years in which it didn't exist and who some argue that for their craft, that's part of their craft. And then you have those who go, actually, we really appreciate someone who's here to support and help to make it a safe space. So an intimacy director or coordinator, depending if it's film or if it's theatre, is someone who's there to assist in creating a safe environment so that the people who are in a scene feel like they are not in a vulnerable situation, feel that they're being held, that they're not being asked to do things that they don't want to do as human beings, and they're not being put in a point of vulnerability where they also feel coerced or forced. Your job is to come in and it's to aid in the director's vision, but it's also to ensure that you're holding the bodies, the actors in space, and with the director and with the actors, you're able to create what is needed for the scene from the standpoint of intimacy. Is it about the storytelling, making it as safe as you can for the cast, within their boundaries, and hopefully at the end of the day you would have assisted the full team to get what is needed for whether it's a TV show or for the play. Because sometimes it's about what do you really need to tell the story.
Okay, so we have now laid the groundwork for all the things that you do, right? Shelley, you are my Jamaican friend. It's so funny. I have other Jamaican friends, but I don't know. I just consider you my Jamaican friend. Not like you represent all of Jamaica, but I guess you do in my head. How does it feel being a Caribbean lady working in some pretty important spaces in the cultural environment in what is considered one of the world's leading creative countries.
I like that, the world's leading creative countries. I don't know, like Jamaican people, we tend to wear our culture and our history like a badge of honor, don't we? I'm very patriotic. I think as much as I wear my culture and my history on me, I also appreciate that I am me, as in Shelley Maxwell. I am the person that has been molded not only by Jamaica, but by my experiences external to it. So when I walk into a room, I am walking in as a Jamaican, but I'm also walking in as myself, which is someone who's traveled and who's been affected by other cultures as well. But I think as a black female in the industry and a black female who is Caribbean, I have a lot of pride in it. In the early days, I don't think it was difficult as much as it was new. And I felt like I had to figure out what my journey was going to be inside rooms, being the most times only black person, or most times the only black female person, definitely 100% of the times back in the day, I'd be the only black female Jamaican born person.
Of a senior level in that room.
Yeah, and I think it was helpful because I was able to be a listening ear if there were other people in my room who were of certain heritage, whether it was Black, British or otherwise. I was able to have an awareness of their needs in the room. I was able to, if necessary, fight battles on their behalf. Because when you talk about power structure and hierarchy in rooms, I have to appreciate that being a creative, I'm on one side of the room. And there are rooms in which you have a divide, and there are rooms in which they keep it less hierarchical and everyone is on equal kilter. But in those rooms where actors or the playing ensemble members don't feel like they have the power, then I think for me, part of my responsibility is to ensure the safety for everyone in the room, regardless of their backgrounds and regardless of colour, but also to ensure that those of the global majority who have historically not been given a voice have a voice through me. And so I find that I sometimes get hired because I'm black.
And that's not a bad thing. I firmly believe in black nepotism, and I think we need to do more of it.
Exactly. I acknowledge that sometimes I am checking a box for someone.
And then you can make a difference.
And I go, that's
when you get into
okay,
that room.
because I will make that difference.
Yeah.
Because I'm happy to be that person that's going to
Open the
help
door.
to create a safe space, who's going to open doors for others to come in. So
Leave it open, because
exactly.
I think that's why it's really great that every time I hear, because obviously having been in the business and still going to see theatre and having a lot of friends, a lot of people comment on working with you. A lot of them may not know that you and I have known each other for, I don't even know how long. I actually, packing, I saw,
2008.
okay, you gave me The Time Traveler's Wife as a present in 2009, because you wrote in it, and I was looking at the book. I was like, oh, this is a book that I probably have to throw out. But then I opened it because I've read it, and I'm just have to minimize. And then I looked at it, I was like, oh, shit, I can't. And then Andrew was actually having me. He's like, take a picture. I was like, no, like, it doesn't count. But you know what I did instead? I just tore out the page.
Aha.
So now it'll go in my scrapbook. But 2009
That's
is when,
nice.
so yes, creating that space, making sure that you're engaging in it. And hearing you say all of that, that's exactly what people receive, because that is what I hear. And without seeking it. Why are you watching a show? Oh, my friend Shelly, the movement, I'm interested in it. And I go and see a lot of work that you've done without even telling you. I go see it because I'm always curious. And they're always like, oh my God, working with Shelly, working with Shelly. And that's a beautiful, amazing thing. But let's backtrack a little bit, because this is also about what you do. And we've explained what a movement director, a choreographer, and an intimacy director does. How did you get into that space? How did that start?
I like the question because you said, how did you get into that space? And I think everyone's journey is different because it's not a straightforward space to move into. The easy answer would be to say that I was lucky. I got asked to assist on a production that was going to be at the Royal Shakespeare Company in 2016, which was Hamlet. And that was my first official movement direction job in this country.
Oh.
And when I did that job, I ended up being in the room a lot because the movement director at the time was not in for some of the process, and that's why I was brought in. And at the end of it, the director said, you should never assist or associate movement director again because you're a movement director in your own right. But that's my first official movement direction job. And I think why he said what he said is because it came natural to me. I won't say easy because it took effort. When I was in the room, I was like, okay, I'm accustomed to working with dancers because I was a contemporary dance choreographer, but now I'm working with actors, and it's a different psychology when you're working with actors. It's different bodies, it's different abilities. It's just as rich as working with dancers, but it's about being able to remove that kind of part of your persona where you are accustomed to being the dance choreographer and you expect and you want and you desire, but you're speaking a different language. So that would be the easy answer. The correct answer would be that it was something that I was doing from when I was a kid.
Okay.
And that was living in Jamaica, going from bossing my cousins around, where let's do a play in the living room, or let's do Michael Jackson's Thriller, and starting to choreograph and to movement direct their bodies without knowing what I was doing. Being in dance companies in Jamaica where I became a choreographer there. So this is from I was like 15, creating dance pieces for stage and doing that on an annual basis, and then being hired by other dance companies to create pieces for them. And that's 15, 16, 17, 18 before even going officially to dance school. But then also having relatives who are part of the arts culture. One relative was a writer, director, another was a writer. And every now and then they'd be like, oh, come and I need help with this play. I just need a little movement sequence or I'm like, yeah, okay, fine. I go, I help them, I do the thing without realizing what I was doing. I was movement directing. And they would do that quite often. Sometimes it was like special for TV and they wanted something. Yeah, man, just come. I'd go, I'd do the thing, again, without realizing that this was movement direction, which was a job that I could be doing. Because in my head, I go, I'm a dancer. I do dance choreography.
Didn't know that was a job that you could be doing.
So many years later now, when I'm doing this thing, because my uncle, he was like, you could, this is what you could be doing. He's like, you should work in theatre and plays. But at the time, I was like, no, I'm a contemporary dance choreographer and I work in concert dance. So, you know, when I got that job and I had that director say that thing to me, I just started laughing. I was like, of course this is natural and of course this feels like something that you can pursue because you've done it before and because you can do it. So that's how it all started.
But not everyone can do it.
No.
In the same way that we know you can't, not every dancer is a choreographer.
Exactly.
So what do you think makes you amazing at what you do?
Thank you for using the word amazing.
No, it's true though. I've seen enough of your work. And there's a signature that you have. I see it in the movement, and that maybe because I know you well. And I've spent a lot of time with you and I've watched you move. Every piece that you've worked on definitely is focused on the work as opposed to I am putting work on you. You know what I mean?
But I think you answered my question because that's what I do. I go with your flow. I go with your body and your energy. I like watching people. I observe people. I observe people when I'm traveling on the train.
Best.
I love people watching because everyone's body is different and offers something. So when I walk into a room, first of all, the word movement and dance, if you're not a dancer or from a dance background, it immediately makes people feel very nervous.
Yeah.
They feel very scared.
Yeah. But they don't realize you move every day.
This is my thing. I was just going to say, for the people that are listening, you move every day. If you're dancing in the shower, you're dancing. If you're grooving to music, your body is made to move, right? So when I start working with people, part of it is very psychological. It's like trying to gain their trust. But I also want to trust them with myself too. So then you do that not only mentally, you also do it physically. Because I don't want to ever put someone in a situation where they feel uncomfortable. Because for me, if you go on stage and you feel uncomfortable doing something, then that is not helpful. It needs to feel like it's right for the story and it's right for the character and it's right for the dance routine or whatever it might be. So I find that I compromise my artistic vision sometimes for the benefit of a story and the benefit of the bodies in front of me. And I question sometimes if it's a good thing or a bad thing, But at the end of the day, we have one life to live, and I'm not put on this planet to torture anybody. So if I can, through that compromise, create something that's just as rich and that is fulfilling for them to do and fits the story, then I think that's a job well done.
Yeah.
So there's a little bit of also kicking off the ego to the side. And that's the approach. I think the approach is to be sensitive to the bodies in front of you, but to also try to be sensitive to my creative self.
Yeah.
And sometimes the balance is easy and sometimes the balance isn't. But I need to walk away knowing that the storytelling is good, the show is being served, and the people feel held. And then I'm okay.
Nice. Okay, so many things just came to mind from that. So one is when you talked about you're not here to torture people, which I think is hilarious because I feel like most dance teachers, that's where they get a lot of their joy. Yeah. Dancing is a beautiful art form and it's so fulfilling and you have to do all of the things and there's all the emotions, yet be a top tier physical athlete. But I do think some dance teachers just like to torture you. And dancing could be torturous depending on what you're doing. So there's that piece. But the other piece I really want to dig into is you talked about being true to your creative self. And I want to understand a little bit more about how you navigate that balance because creative rooms, especially when you're creating work, is such a delicate yet tense environment because there's personalities, there's time, there's money, there's a whole bunch of stuff. Its own little ecosystem that if it went 1 degree up, it's falling apart, right? Completely. Or it's suddenly like the thing. It makes it all work. So I want to understand a little bit about how you navigate when you have to give up your creative self. But I also and I'm just saying it out so we don't forget, when you see a piece, that when you come out to the room and you've created it and then you look at it on stage, that'll feel right. So let's talk first about, because I just babbled completely, but let's talk about how do you navigate when sometimes you have to give up your creative self?
So let's say not giving up my creative self, but like compromising.
Yeah.
So not giving up because I still hold on to it tightly. Otherwise, I wouldn't be in the room. The first thing is I work with a team of people. So it's a very collaborative environment, or it should be. So you're hired in to work with the director. In theatre, it's your sound designer, it's your lighting designer, it's your costume and set designer.
The stage manager.
Yeah, in TV and film, a whole gamut. So the first thing is that you have that navigation to make. So with me, I find compromises fun because I look at it as a challenge. So if a director says to me, that's not working for them, it might work for me. I might create this thing and I go, that fits the brief, I think it's great. But they're like, that's not working. The tonal quality isn't quite what we want. I take it as a challenge. I go, okay, cool. Because I think as well with arts, it's supposed to be malleable. You need to be able to change it. I go, how can I better it? If there's something inside of it I like, how can I keep that, make the entire thing better, fit the brief, but also I feel happy because I've kept this thing.
Piece of Shelley.
Yeah, keep that little piece. That's the challenge, is like always the changing and keeping things malleable, but still trying to hold on to the things you can't let go of. Because I'll say in a process, I'm always malleable, but there generally is like one thing that I go in my gut, creatively, I think that's the right decision. And I'm not afraid to also put my foot down. So there are things where I go, yeah, fine, no problem. Like me, biggest yes person. I'm like, yeah, we can do that. Because that's the fun. The joy is like, why not? Let's just start it over. Let's make it happen differently. Let's just rejig. Love a good rejig. But there are times as well, not to make myself just come across like, yeah, total yes, compromising all the time, where I go, 100% believe that this is the right choice. And I will then have conversations about the director as to the whys. And sometimes they go, okay, go with your flow, let's see what happens. And sometimes they're like, I don't know. And then I go back and I was like, let me try and get the balance. But like case in point with Equus, the director during previews, they have gotten masks in for the humans that were playing horses. originally they were like, oh, we think we might mask them. And I was like, no, I can do it without masks. I believe I can create this horse with just the dance body. But there was still like tussling in the back about whether or not it could work. And so these masks got made, and obviously they're going to cost money. And I was like, you know what? They exist. Try them in a preview. Like, try them in a preview, because if we don't do it, we don't know. And by my heart and in my stomach, I knew that it didn't need it. And so the show happened, and the majority of the creative team was like, we don't need them. But the director was like still unsure. Because he's a fantastic director and one of my favorite directors to have worked with, because he also was quite all about rejigging and challenging, and I adored it. It pushed me and it was great. But with this one, I remember staying in the theatre that night until midnight, having this massive discussion about these masks, because I was just like, no, we don't need them. It works without it. And I don't know, what could it bring? And it was like hours of conversation. And in the end, thankfully, we didn't go with the masks. And it made the show in a way...
So much more powerful.
Exactly. The show on itself was powerful. I don't want to make it seem as if because it didn't have the mask. But the movement was a big part of the success of it. And there was the movement without the masks as well. So
And it won awards.
And it won awards.
It clearly spoke to multiple people.
Yeah, it is tricky doing this entire creative self balancing act while being a good collaborative person. But you do have to put your foot down sometimes. And I'm at the point now where I'm happy to walk away from things, because I will hold on to, like I said, tightly to creative things that I believe are very representative of my truest self with regards to working on a production, a project. And that's why I meet with directors beforehand, so I know who I'm working with. We meet for coffee, we meet to speak. I read the scripts before, so that I get an understanding of the story, so that they can speak about their understanding of what they'd like to do, what they envision, if I can really check what they need, if I am the best person for that job. And so I do the crazy thing of sometimes walking away from work if I feel like I'm not right for it. And I have agents who are happy. Well, not happy. Are they happy?
I think
they're happy with me.
Yeah,
and they're happy with me to make my decisions.
Yeah,
so,
stay working. Even if you give up work, you are always working.
Just knocking on someone and knocking on the table.
I don't think that will change.
So that's part of my workflow. But also, going back to the torture thing, I never looked on dance as torture. I enjoyed every minute of my training. And I was the person...
I look at it as torture now. In hindsight, I'm like, what the fuck were we doing?
I enjoyed it being grueling. I enjoyed all of the pain, because I saw that anytime I was pushed beyond my limit... The result
of that pain is so good.
The result of it was just amazing. The improvement was amazing. That's and true. The more you pushed, the better it became. With the torture aspect, for myself, I enjoyed how grueling my dance training was. I think it was a different generation and different kind of style of training to what people probably have now. And even being in dance companies where rehearsals were grueling.
I miss a good 6-hour rehearsal though. Have to admit, sometimes I'm like, there's nothing more satisfying.
You're tired and you get again. Can you do it again? You're like, okay, everything is aching. The foot is torn. But yet you do it again. And I think it's because of the passion and the joy that we got from moving our bodies in that way. And I think that's the thing that I come back to is moving bodies.
That's true. Movement
choreography. Even when I work with contemporary dancers, and I know that they don't think I'm mad, because they love working with me, I think. Because we're in a room and we have it for 10 to 6. I don't need to work for 10 to 6. If by 4 we've done what we need to do and the routine looks slick, why am I going to then stay in a room for 2 more hours just because we've been given 10 to 6? I'm like, good, let's do it one more time and let's go home.
And then they look at you like you're mad, most likely.
Of course they do. But I go, if you do it 10 more times, what is it going to do for you? Are you tired? Yes. Do you have energy to do it 10 more times? No. Is that going to result in injury? Probably. And then what does that mean for me? Again, it's about holding the space for people, doing what you need to do creatively, And when you're done, you're done.
I have to say, I think that is what millennials, which is what we are, have brought to this world in a really good way. Like, we come from that life of hard work, do as you're told, all of those old school ways of thinking, that which we now call old school, but that's how we were raised. But somehow along the way and in the route, we were the ones who started that idea of it doesn't have to be this way. Yet we have that resilience, that grit, that determination, that kind of hard work pays off approach. But then we could go, but you know what? We could call it today 2 hours early, because why? And it's really nice that you're doing that, because also among the people who come to me are people who are younger than us, who are like, Shelly's so inspiring, and da 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 da, and her approach. In that dance that you have to do to be collaborative. If there was an upcoming movement director and you were mentoring them, is there a way to say, do it like this, process-oriented way, to kind of work in that space, in that collaborative room? Because a lot of what you do is because it's who you are. Some minds need a little bit of step 1, step 2, step 2A. Do you think you could codify how to approach a collaborative room?
No. Because you literally said the answer that I was going to say, which is everyone is different. You walk into a room, it's different. Like, part of my job is, you listed all these things and I spoke about all these different companies. When I walk into a room, it's different people every time.
Always.
And it's a different mix of people.
Mm-hmm.
It's a different world. It's a different team. Sometimes you'll have the same team, maybe, if you're lucky. But most times a different team. So your approach has to be different. My approach is never the same. Never. Every job is different. It's not formulaic. So when people speak with me, because I do have people that come in going, how do you and what do you? And I tell them it's not like a step 1, step 2 thing. It's very much depends on the room that you're in. So you can have a guide. I would say the biggest thing you can do is listen to the director, but listen to your space and listen to your room. Observe. When you go into space, observe what the energy is like, observe what the culture is, because directors set the culture in a room, but a movement director can also help to set the culture. Also dependent on the project. Some projects are very heavy, and some projects are comedic and light, and the room is reflective in that way. So when you walk in, it's always speak about movement direction being 80% psychological and 20% movement. And I really think that's a truthful statement in my perspective. So I wouldn't feel comfortable giving anybody, this is a step 1, step 2, step 3, because I think I'd be setting them up for failure. Because it really is about your personality. And that's why I think when you said earlier that not every dancer is a choreographer and not everybody can movement direct, 100% agree with it.
Yeah.
And it's not a bad thing. But it is a skill set that's very specific. And that comes back to personality and communication. It's how you communicate with people, but also how you are able to translate through words what you'd like them to do with their bodies. It's a very hard thing. It's not an easy thing.
It really is. Have you ever had an experience where you're just like, nah, I can't. You said I'll do the job, you did your pre-work, and then you just went, no, this room just isn't working. Everything I try doesn't cut it. Has that ever occurred? And how have you navigated it?
I think that there are easy rooms and there are hard rooms. And it's not just from the perspective of the creative. It's also personalities, because we're humans. Mm-hmm. You have people out there that are not nice people. And maybe there are lots of people who you haven't spoken to yet who maybe say that I'm not a nice person. So understanding happens quite often. And that's why words are important. That's why when you ask me a question, maybe I prattle on too long because I'm thinking about what I'm saying, because I think words are important. There are times when I'm in a room and it's a little bit harder than other rooms. And those are the times where I step back and observe more so that I can understand how I need to function in the room, what I need to do. And this is when it's important to ensure that you left your ego at the door. Because it might mean that in this process or in this room, you have more kind of vocal actors who want to take charge and have more autonomy over what they're doing, which is not a bad thing. It's a good thing. But it then means that maybe you're not as active in the space, and you have to be okay with that.
Mm-hmm.
It also means that maybe what's being done isn't exactly what you had in your mind, and you have to be okay with that initially until you're able to then figure out how you can mold what's happening to check your boxes as well. And there are times where, like you say, you know, I'm not going to ever speak in specifics because, you know, in our industry it's too small to do that.
Yes.
But there are times where, and it's a rare occasion, that maybe I've worked on 1 or 2 shows where I've had misunderstandings with a castmate, but I'm a very kind of direct and straight on person, so I'm going to want to go and converse over it. But people are different. Mm-hmm. So just because you want to speak with someone about something and talk it through doesn't mean it's going to be resolved.
Or that they want to even do it.
You have to be okay with that.
Yeah.
And you have to then be okay with working in a space where there's a bit of tension with you and one more person potentially. But if you're both professionally, then you still just do the work, the job gets done. Maybe the job doesn't feel as nice going in every day, but that's okay too, because not every job is going to feel nice going in.
Yeah.
I'm blessed to go into the spaces and do what I do for a living. There are many people who on a daily basis go into spaces that they don't like.
That's so very true.
I'll take it as it comes.
Yeah. I want to go back to the question that I spoke out loud that we never got to. Thank God I remembered it. Which was, are there times where you're in a room and you go, yeah? Because you're rehearsing and prepping something for people who aren't necessarily coming from this space. When you're rehearsing, you're not in the performance space yet. You're in a room and the room doesn't have all of the actual infrastructure. So wings aren't there. If you have automated set, it isn't there, but it's tape on the floor to tell you this and that. And there's this hole here, or there's this door here, you enter here, or this bed is going to be in this place. And so obviously when you are building something, you don't have the full picture, the entire environment in front of you. And then you're in that rehearsal room and energies are different as well because it's smaller. It is the absolute pared back version. And it feels really good in that space and it's amazing and great. And then it goes into theatre and it just doesn't sit right. Nothing works. Time is of the essence. So changing things may not be possible. If you are, I assume that's where you thrive because you're like a rejig. But what happens if you don't realize it until that preview? And for folks who aren't aware, a preview is when a piece of work, speaking about theatre specifically, is when your work is open to the public, it's shown to the public. It's generally, people when they go to see a preview know that this is not the official final product. It is a time where you get audience reaction and you feel it more in the space and you have an opportunity to change it with enough time. So just so folks know. But what does that feel like and how do you navigate that? Or has that even happened?
Oh no, that happens all the time. What's great is you'll have people who come to a preview 1, which is, like you said, the first kind of audience showing, and they'll come back to see what the show really looks like. Because you will sometimes go and watch a show on preview 1, and by the time it's officially opened, which is called press night in Theatreland, I would say more often than not, we're changing consistently in previews, and more often than not, things that you thought would work don't work. And that is what I love. My favorite thing is preview time. A lot of people don't like preview time. I'm like, preview time. Let's get it going, because I love
time to get gritty, get
thinking
busy.
on the fly, because that's when you then get the creative gems as well. Because as humans, we like structure. So you're in this thing, this is what we're doing, this is what we're creating. You create it, you've, again, done your little checklist. It's great. Then you're in this situation now where all of a sudden the stairs are shorter, the entrances are cut, the set's not working, the costume we need to be changed, and you're like, oh, but that affects everything, so we have to change it. I look at it as a good thing. I'm like, okay, this is our environment now, what can we make? Because what can we make and how can we make it better? Yep. I'm always looking for like how to make it better. There's always a better. There's not one show that I have done that I've walked away going, I couldn't have made that better. Every show I go, I wish I had more time on that. I wish I had more time on that. Because you can just keep going, but that's also part of the discipline, is to stop and allow things to just be.
Yep, and sometimes if you keep going, that's where you mess it up.
Yeah, so you just have to be able to walk away. But no, it's like changes all the time. And in the rehearsal room, I think you can tell when things aren't working. And then you have to, again, it's about being brave. And it's about the team being brave. Because, I'm just one part of that wheel.
And that trust.
Yeah.
That everybody
So
needs to
everyone
have.
has to, and the actors as well, because acting is not an easy thing. I respect them so much because you're putting yourself consistently in these points of vulnerability.
Yep.
And when you're then in a scenario where you've rehearsed something for 3 weeks and you feel really good and confident and solid in it, and then all of a sudden they're like, we have to rejig, or you have to do script cuts, it's too long. They're the ones who have to get really grounded in staying for the ride, because they're the ones that are doing the thing. We have this is we're going snip, fix, screw here, do that there, but they are inside of it. So,
They're the ones who are going to be seen.
Yeah. They're the ones who are going to be seen. So they're the ones who are going, oh, we're cutting 2 pages, so my character no longer has that scene. So they're jumping from that emotional state to that emotional state. Ah, okay. And that's just part of the process again. We've spoken a lot about me and about this side, the creative side, but also that's where I always come back to the room being a wonderful environment. The word environment is great because you have all these different organisms in it.
It really is.
And you have to get that balance right for everybody.
It's so true. I don't know if you've ever had a bad review. Have you?
Yeah.
Okay.
Me personally, or shows that I've worked on personally?
Maybe a mix of both?
I've had a mix of both.
Yeah.
Had a mix of both. Again, I think what's interesting about reviews is it's a select few people who go to watch a show.
And it's very subjective.
And it's so subjective. But they're trusted because you've been doing this and you have this kind of wealth of knowledge, etc. But also it's very subjective. Because I go to watch shows a lot. That's part of my MO is going to watch so I can see what's happening and feel and what moves me and what's successful and what isn't in my kind of perspective, right? And I'll watch shows that have gotten amazing reviews and it just wasn't the one for me. I'm like, okay, I don't understand what's happening.
That's why I don't read reviews before I go see it.
This is the thing. But then I've also gone to watch shows that have had what we would consider bad reviews. And I think it's amazing. So when it comes to reviews for shows that I've worked on, I have to also remind myself of when I watch how much discrepancy it is between what I like, what I don't like, what they don't like. So I can't take it too much to heart. That said, I'm not going to lie. Any show you work on, you want it to do well. So it does hurt or sting when the thing that you've worked on with a team of people and with these actors who are beautiful, you spend weeks and weeks creating it, you pop it on stage, and then people are like, You're like, oh, wow, okay. So then I think it comes to the audience perspective is really important. Because what is entertainment? It's about allowing someone to have a connection in some way, right? So you go to watch a show really at the base of it when you go back all the way to Greek times and plays. It's about this relationship between the acting core and the receiver, the audience. You're trying to move them in some way, whether it's emotional or in a way where you're giving them new trains of thought. So you're trying to inspire the mind, right? You're just trying to get one little reaction. That's all you're aiming to do. Is the show doing that at the base, at its root system? And if it is, you can't argue it's therefore not doing what it's supposed to be doing. If it moves this person, for them, it's a good show. But then coming back to the reviews and the mix. Yeah, it's hard, but then I think, again, you have to move on and move forward. For me, I read through it to understand where did it miss? Why was it not considered a hit according to these few subjective people? But what can I take from it?
Yeah.
What lessons can I learn to help the next show that I work on? When it's stuff about my work, again, it will always sting. And I read it and I go, okay. And that's out in the public domain. So you have to be okay with that. But then you also have to be okay with the fact that you put yourself in the public eye. As an artist, you're putting your work out there to be criticized, literally. So I have to be okay with that as well. And sometimes it just makes me laugh. And sometimes I might go, oh, well, yeah, I could have done a better job on that. I think getting pissed off about it isn't helpful. But the earlier ones stung more, I'm not going to lie, like when I was contemporary dance choreographer.
But I think dance is slightly different as well, because if it's talking about your choreography,
Yeah.
it's literally talking about something that has come from your gut.
Exactly.
Whereas I think with theatre and TV, there's so many other people working on this, because it is such a bigger collaborative effort. Because when someone's watching contemporary dance, very rarely do they say, oh, the lighting sucked. You know what I mean? Or didn't really like those costumes. It's about the
because
choreography.
like you said,
and
you are the core creator.
Yeah.
When you're doing contemporary dance choreography, it comes from your gut. It's whether it's a piece of music that you listen to and you went, oh my God, that's inspiring me, I'm going to create something to that, or it's an idea that you have. The concept is coming from you. The movement is coming out of you. You're making the decisions on costuming and this and that. So at the end of the day, when it's criticized, it's all you.
Yeah.
So that one stings more. It's harder. But again, I think you have to take the lessons that you can from it. Everyone looks on things differently. Me saying it makes me a little bit stronger in my skin, it's not saying that I'm negating it any at all. I'm not trying to say that I'm a superhero. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is I've received the criticism. I've looked at it. Whether or not there's a wound, that's fine. I have to live with it, and it's part of the fabric of who I am. And I think it's made me richer. So I think, I don't know, maybe if I had a golden ticket where I was like, choreographer du jour, Shelley Maxwell, and I got no criticisms, would that be beneficial? Would that have made me who I am today? Probably not.
You get lazy.
Yeah, so I received them. They sting, but I think it's good grounding.
Thinking about how you do what you do and why you do what you do. And you have consistently talked about wanting to make sure that you keep on improving and changing it and rejigging it. How do you make sure you do that?
It's a good question. I still do workshops. I'll see a workshop and it will interest me and I'll do a workshop. Because
when you say you were doing a workshop,
I will take part in the workshop because I am a trained dancer. So this is my training. And I'm also a trained choreographer. I studied choreography as well. So I have that. But I'm not a circus practitioner. I am not a mime artist. So there are many different forms of movements that exist that I have not done. And if I see that there's a workshop with someone who I admire or who inspires me, then I will sign up to do the workshop because I will learn something and I'll be able to pull from that and add to my toolkit. So I better myself by bettering my toolkit. Going to watch shows is also bettering my toolkit. I love when I watch a show and I see that someone has done a phenomenal job.
What does that look like to you?
It looks like heaven and mild jealousy with the
because
sprinkling.
you're like, I wish I did that.
Yeah, because you're like, oh my God, I wish I had done that. And that's the best feeling when you watch something and you wished that you could have done that. Because then you go, how can I do that?
Have you seen anything recently that made you be like, oh, I wish that was my own?
Well, I mean, I always come back to Crystal Pite, the choreographer.
She is beautiful.
Didn't I see Betroffenheit with you?
Maybe it's Sadler's.
Yeah.
Maybe.
It just comes back to
I did see that.
Betroffenheit. And that was like how many years back, but I still come back to it because I sat there going, oh my God, this is amazing. How did she do that? When you have that question of how, it's a great question.
But I feel like we're at Akram Khan a lot.
Akram Khan's a good one as well.
His work really speaks to me a lot.
Yeah, Giselle was phenomenal on E&B.
Oh my God. I don't think anyone could ever top that Giselle. Honestly, no one could ever top that Giselle. It was a beaut. And I will watch it every single time. I will go and watch it.
But it's being able to appreciate other people's artistry and to still recognize that there's growth to be done. Because I think some people stop because they're okay with that. I'm never okay with it because I'm always like, what's new and what's happening in. I think maybe I go back to contemporary dance a lot because it's consistently changing and physical theatre is always pushing boundaries and limits. So those kind of are the pools that I'll jump back into. And also just reminding my body to move because I'm no longer on stage dancing. Every now and then go, okay, time to do some classes. And I jumped back in. A few months ago, I was doing jazz classes. Uh-huh.
Papa.
Uh-huh. But again, this is in prep, I think, for Time Traveler's Wife. I felt like I wanted to go do jazz classes. And so I was doing 2 months of jazz dance classes at Pineapple. Thank you very much.
Hey!
Yeah, I was rocking
Old
up.
school.
I was rocking up, I was doing my jazz. It didn't really feed into the movement as such in the end, but that's the kind of thing that I'll do. If I'm working on a play and there's ballroom dancing, get my ass in ballroom dance class, which is also why I love my job because I end up learning a lot of skill sets depending on the project.
Yeah. We talked about a thing that oh, I love that piece. It's so amazing. You and I have walked out of shows before that everyone thought were amazing. We've done it twice now.
But we won't mention the shows.
Of course not. For you, what is something that would make you leave a show?
Oh, what is something that would make me...
Just to be clear,
Okay,
for
well-
people, the show hasn't completed. Yeah, exit at interval.
Yeah. I think no one wants to walk out of a show because at the end of the day, everyone puts hard work into creating something. And it's really important to be supportive of the arts. But also, as I grow older, it's very important for me to be supportive of my time.
Mm-hmm. I think that's why you and I both times were like, this isn't doing it for us.
Time is
And-
it's a currency.
Yeah.
And it's the most valuable currency that you have. Time. And so I really place high value on how I spend my time. And again, if we come back to I go to watch theatre for enjoyment, but also for work, because I'm looking to see what's out there and how I can learn from it. I like watching theatre that I also find bad, because when I'm watching it, my brain starts going, what would you do? Where is it falling apart? Why is it falling apart? Because it's rules, right? It's rules for me to comprehend so that I don't fall into that trap. But when I find that I'm watching something and I become time poor, for context, those two instances for us, we don't see each other very often.
So we chose to spend time with each other instead.
So we choose to have a link. Most times we end up going to watch a show. But while I'm watching, the show is really not good. And I find that I can't take lessons from it. And I'm with someone who I would like to be time rich with. Then I make the decision at interval to go because my time is better spent having a conversation with the person versus sitting down and watching the rest of the show where I go, that's not going to be enriching for me.
It's true, and I think you're right. Those two incidences, we chose to then just spend time with each other, which, frankly, we also were very aligned. I don't even think there was conversation. We're just like, really? Yeah. And we were both happy to exit. I think, similarly, obviously, for me, I go to see theatre for enjoyment now. It's not my business anymore. But I definitely, probably within the first 20 minutes, know if I'm going to sit through this or not. And I go to see so much theatre that I just started becoming a little bit more discerning and cutthroat in a way of what I'm doing. And yes, I want to support you, which is why I'm here in the first place and I've purchased this ticket. But at the same time, I do think that it's really important as someone who is taking in theatre to not just accept something that is not serving you. And I wonder, as someone who possibly has been in a space where someone has walked out, if you had the opportunity to see someone exiting, what would you do with that?
As in, if this is on one of my shows? Or
Yeah,
this
on a
is
show that
me...
you've worked on.
Okay.
What would you do if you saw someone exiting a piece that you've worked on?
I see people exiting all the time
Oh.
from different things. I mark where it happened. And this is why previews are helpful. Because if it is, that's a frequent thing and that happened at the same spot, same point, that means that something is going on in the show that loses that person.
True.
So again, it's like understanding the why. That said, I'm not going to run the person down because also people come to theatre and they have trains. So a lot of people, if the show goes up late, it comes back.
We
like
both
that happens.
We saw one to the end recently and we're like, okay, we can't stay for the standing no because we got to go.
Yeah, so again, I think I can't make an assumption about why that person is leaving because I don't know what's happening. I don't know if they got a text and there's an emergency. So I can't make an assumption that it's about the show. So unless I'm going to go and run and hunt them down and go, hey, why are you leaving? I just mark it because I go, if they left, this is when it happened. Why would that be? If they left because they need to use the toilet and just didn't come back, I need to be okay with that as well.
I've done that too.
Yeah, it's just...
Yeah.
I think because it's all subjective as well, isn't it? Because you and I walk out and we've walked out of things that other people loved.
Yeah.
So to be clear, like even saying a statement as a good show or a bad show, there's no good or bad because it's just subjective.
I don't think there is a good show and bad show.
It wasn't serving us in that moment because there's also, we could have gone 2 months later on a different day when it would have served us. Don't know why.
Perhaps, yeah, true. Do you think you could distinguish how much, if you had to give percentages or fractions to it, what is gut, heart, creativity, brain?
With the choices that I make?
Yeah, and I just blended a whole bunch of them. Creativity is 100%. We don't need creativity in that. But like your gut, your heart, and your brain when you're working on something.
Oh, okay, fine. So when I'm working on something, so I'm inside of something working on it, what am I led by?
Yep.
They're all working at the same time.
I feel like you have said that quite significantly, but I didn't want to put words in your mouth. There's no distinction, and specifically because with movement direction or movement choreographer, as we're now going to call it, you are playing all of those roles at the same time. You are doing the gut part, which is looking at this movement and what feels right. Then you are doing the heart part, which is I love this and I'm feeling this and I'm interacting with these people. But then you also do your brain because you're leading these people and you have to make sure that from a strategic perspective, a production perspective, all of those things. So there isn't really an easy way to distinguish, and it is a very kind of whole-brained, whole-person approach, isn't it? The industry that you work in is very complex, constantly changing. You can't put your finger on it at any point. Is there anything, if you had that golden ticket, that you would completely change?
That I would completely change?
Yeah.
Oh, so tricky. Everything is also, right now we're in this real state of flux since COVID and BLM resurgence. Like all the industries, TV, film, theatre, they're like this at the moment. I'm doing a very wavy hand gesture. They're trying to figure out what this new state is. So I feel like to the current industry, I wouldn't want to change anything now because I feel like I want to see where it's going to land. And then I would change if it doesn't land where I think it should.
So where do you think it should land?
I think the obvious is that representation is key across all departments and not just lower tier, all the way up. That would be nice, that everyone is being given an opportunity to work on all levels within the industry in all three. Where should it land?
What's your utopia?
Yeah, what is utopia, right? Utopia is that in utopia for everyone's happy. Everyone's never going to be happy. But I think utopia is a fair share across the masses. That's what utopia is with regards to the work that's being presented in all three and the people that are being used in all three. But also, I think for me, it's quality of work. I like good work.
Yeah.
I like quality of work tends to come from good writing and good production. And I think we are now at a place of plenty, specifically with regards to TV.
Yeah.
There are many things that are not made for the quality as much as for the turnaround and turnover. So maybe I would want it to land where the focus is a little bit more on the quality, a bit more.
Yeah. I feel like whenever we talk, because I love bad TV, that's one of my things. And I feel like whenever we talk, I feel a little bit, not less than, because you never make me feel that way, but I just feel a little bit shame. I always be like, man, Shelly's always make me feel like I need to be doing something a little bit more intellectually stimulating with my TV education.
No, there's no shame in bad TV, because remember, you're doing bad TV watching, which is like turning off and tuning out.
That's true. I'm not making bad TV.
Exactly. You asked me about where it should land from a production perspective. And the utopia, remember, that you asked is that it checks everyone's boxes. So the bad TV box is still being checked, but it's just that the good TV box is being checked properly.
And better.
is the point.
Yeah, that's true.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. You could have been and were studying to be an actuary, which I can't even imagine.
I can't imagine either.
On
That's
you,
why I'm not doing
right?
it.
And you had mentioned one of the questions I had asked was like, what do you want to be when you grow up? And you were like, inherently and subconsciously it was this, but you told the world the socially acceptable was a lawyer. Two options, lawyer and actuary, that could not be further from the actuality, from the reality of what you have built. Why did you even consider those?
The answer is because I grew up in a Caribbean island where someone doing dance as a career was frowned upon. At the time in Kingston, and I'll be very specific because it's very specific to when I was younger, living in Kingston, Jamaica, at that particular time, people were like, how are you going to make a living from dance? When people said the word dance, you know, you could see the entire mouth just change and alter, and the tone of it just change and alter. I'm growing up with this passion that's always being questioned and seen as a hobby. It's the kind of micro things. So when you finish this dance business, what are you going to do?
When you finish playing.
So apart from dance on the side, what are you doing at university? What are you going to study at university? Oh, you still going to dance? You still doing that dance thing? It was always derogatory. And so in your brain, you are instilled with the value of dance is not the profession I can choose. Because when I get to be 18, I need to go to university, I need to study something. Or even before that, when you're doing your GCSE O-levels, you have to think about what are you going to do. I wasn't
Choosing
thinking
these
about
subjects.
I'm going to be a dancer. Oh, I'm going to be a lawyer. So what are the subjects I need to do? Maths, history, English, GP. Okay, cool. Why do I want to be a lawyer? I don't know. Because when I was in grade 9, you have the careers fair. There wasn't a dancer there. There wasn't a choreographer there. There was a movement person. I tell you what, there was lawyers, doctors, computer analysts. Because, you know, in the Caribbean, everybody, my son is going to be or my daughter is going to be. So you go, oh, these are the professions I can choose from. And we didn't have, not to age us, but you didn't have the internet at the ready to jump on to see what the rest of the world was doing.
We were in the dial-up age. We were.
So it's not even like you can edify yourself to go, oh, this is what I can do. I always thought I would have a profession and be a dancer on the side in Jamaica. And that's what a lot of my friends did or still are doing. I have friends who are lawyers and doctors who also dance in the companies in Jamaica on stage. And they are happy and feel fulfilled.
Yeah, that turned out too.
Exactly.
But
so,
I could never imagine that.
No.
Even when I was younger. It's funny that you say, no, I wanted my question to be why a lawyer and an actuary, because I understood and I subconsciously understood why you didn't think that. However, I have to say, and I give my parents big props for this, there was never a question. There was never a question I wasn't going to be a dancer. I did not consider any other career until I was already in my dance career and went, okay, this is not... We know realistically, long term, what's the next step, because dancing is a limited...
But how amazing for you that you
yeah.
could use the words dance career
Yeah.
from that early age, whereas that was not a thing in my purview. And my mother wasn't exposed to dance globally, because having grown up in Jamaica and been in a different environment, which is more business oriented, she didn't know how to help with regards to, oh, maybe you could do this, you could do that. So anything I did was me going, oh, I want to go to Ailey for summer school, but still having that being met or seen as the hobby. So them being very supportive with me going off to do all these things, but in the back of everyone's mind, it's just facilitating me being on stage in Jamaica. It's not going to be my career. By the time now you get to the point where you are going to university, you say, why actuarial science? I was good at maths. It's a love of mine. I absolutely adore it. Mathematics is so much fun. It is a joy. And I loved it. It was something that I was passionate about from very young straight through to A-levels.
I'm trying to think if I've known any creative who has said they absolutely love mathematics.
But I think that's why I also approach things the way I do. So I got into that program and I realized the actuary program. Yeah, and I realized very quickly that's not what I wanted to do, because instead I ended up dancing in the dance society and living in the theatre on campus, sleeping, eating there, doing everything in the theatre, not
And
doing it in
feeling
a lecture room.
and feeling actuary science, or were you still passing and then decided I'm giving this up?
I did my first year, and then I was in my second year. I came to London to dance for the summer, because again, where am I going? I'm like, and while I was here, I was like, I don't want to go back to school. I would like to dance. Dance is what I'd like to do as my career. And why that awakening happened is because I was in London seeing other people doing it for their career. I was
So
like,
you saw that it could happen.
this can happen. I can do this. So I'm going to fight for that. And so I then just didn't go back to university and went off to dance school.
Yeah.
So making that choice, which was, when I look back, I go, it's an obvious choice. But at the time, it was a very brave choice, because then you have to go to your parents going, I'm not going back to school. And they're looking at you like, what? I'm going to school, but it's dance school. And thankfully, having a parent who's supportive enough to go, okay.
Let's see.
Not
what
knowing where it
happens.
was going to head.
Yeah.
I didn't even know where it was going to head. Here I am with you today, so it obviously wasn't a bad decision.
Yeah, with me feeling very special, I could brag about you being my friend. So yeah. Let's go back to thinking around the mentorship part. If someone was starting in this industry, and you had mentioned earlier that sometimes you stand by your creative decisions and you really put your foot down, I can imagine that someone who's younger might not feel as confident in being able to do that. How would you support someone or suggest to someone that how they could navigate that space?
I feel comfortable now putting my foot down because I have the experience and the CV behind me. I wouldn't suggest that someone puts their foot down in certain spaces. I think also part of building yourself as a business is strategic. And I think in the same way that people walk into their first 9 to 5 job, they're not walking in to try and ruffle feathers immediately. If people want to, they can, but that's not my approach, and therefore it wouldn't be the approach that I would say to someone to follow. I think you need to choose your battles as well. I think don't compromise on yourself. If you're in a scenario that you feel is harmful to yourself mentally, spiritually, emotionally, then you need to go. And that's my thing. Like, before you put the foot down and burn your bridges, leave the space, go build you, go do you, go in a different space that's more amenable, so that when you have that CV and the years of experience, you can go back in that other space and then you can put your foot down. But yeah, it's business. And this is where, for me, even though I didn't become an actuary, I'm very business-minded. I did end up producing like a dance festival in Jamaica for a couple of years before I came to London. I did that on my own, just woke up and went, this is what I'm going to do. So I think the reality is that you are working in a business environment. At the end of the day, you are a small part of a very big machine. And when you forget that, I think, is when you falter. And as a Black female as well, I think it's very important to keep that at the forefront, that it is business, and therefore I need to walk in with that approach for myself, but also for everybody else behind me, and to strategize, because that's how we move forward as a people. People talk about wealth. It's about having knowledge, and it's about being able to navigate in the environments that you can keep the door open and keep the next door open and keep the next door open. But it is strategy. So it's everything working in conjunction.
Bells, what will you do?
That's really funny, because on the way here, I think that I'm cyclical. I was born in the year of the snake, and I always, whenever I'm going through changing, I feel like a snake shedding skin. And I think that I'm the type of person that consistently needs to shed skin. And when I was walking here, I was like, feeling like there's a push to do something. I think that I want to always be doing movement. I love doing what I'm doing. I'm working a lot more in TV and film, which is very exciting, creating choreography, but also doing movement direction. And I think I adore working in theatre spaces because I just like the people and the environment and making.
One of my favorite things is the darkness of a theatre.
Oh my God.
A theatre tech or dress run is one of my favorite things ever.
Standing on a stage or sitting on a stage and just looking out at a dark auditorium is the best feeling in the world. But what I've realized is also, to me, the best feeling in the world is writing.
When you say writing, are you talking a novel or?
I currently write lots of comedic scripts for TV. I know. I'm in discussions currently with my agents with regards to that and how to move that forwards. But I also think that there's a novel deep inside of me. And if there are any writers listening, I don't want to belittle that world. So I want to also make it clear that what we didn't speak about today is the fact that I've always written. Part of the workshops that I do, a lot of writing workshops. When I left The Lion King the first time, as in an intense writing workshop in Soho, I've written from high school. I've always been in writers' clubs. It's part of
something that you've been working on.
Yeah, it's part of the personality on the side and something that I've been working on and that I do now. And I think what will I do? I will get one of my wonderful scripts produced and seen on TV. And I will probably do a lot more writing and end up hopefully in writers' rooms. And I will continue doing movement choreography.
We started a movement called Movement Choreography.
Movement choreography, I love it. And I will also try and spend more time understanding myself as I move forward. I think that's all the wills that we'll be doing.
Nice. So I have stolen James Lipton's 10 questions at the end of Inside the Actor Studio because I've always thought they were spectacular questions. I don't need to explain where it comes from with you, blah, blah, blah. I could just say it and you get it. So we're going to close off with these 10 questions. So what's your favorite word?
Specificity. Love it. Love that word.
Why do you love specificity?
Oh my God, I can't. Just the way it rolls off your tongue and what it's about. Specificity. Listen to it. It's gorgeous.
You know what? I've never thought of that. And it's the way you also said it. You said, I was such love that, yeah, I get that. What's your least favorite word?
Oh, my least moist.
I wonder why everyone says moist, though. What's your reason for moist?
Moist. Immediately I get imagery of sweat and damp, and that's just not a nice feeling. And so it has a feeling. Other people, I think, have a different reason why, but moist,
I dislike it because that shit fucks up your shoes. It's a beast. What turns you on?
What turns me on? Stimulating conversation.
I hope this was. What turns you off?
People that are not nice.
This is all this is on brand. What sound or noise do you love?
What sound of...
Or noise. What sound or noise?
Crickets in the Caribbean.
That Caribbean night?
Yeah. It's just...
Best thing ever. The crickets and the little tiny frogs with my sister.
So good.
Coquy frogs. But that sound, sometimes I used to call home at night just on purpose because it's so loud as well. You hear it through the phone.
It's great.
Such a good sound.
Yeah.
Sound or noise that you hate?
Sound or noise that I hate. That's a hard one. In my head, I just see rust. So maybe it's something that's clanky. I don't know how truthful it is, but that's what came into my head.
Okay. And what's your favorite curse word?
My favorite curse? We can say that on the...
Yes, you can say it.
Favorite curse word? It'd have to be fuck. I think I use that quite a lot.
It is just an all-encompassing word, you know?
Yeah.
And I can't imagine this, but if you could do any other profession, what would that be?
Oh my God, I'd be a stage manager. You kidding?
I was hoping you'd say something outside of the creative space.
Oh,
but yeah,
no,
I could see a stage manager.
Yeah, man. I've been living my best stage manager life. You kidding me?
Why don't you?
Because I do what I do.
And what about one that you wouldn't want to do?
I wouldn't want to do.
Yeah, another profession.
If I'm being really realistic, I wouldn't want to be like doing an admin job with a computer, 9 to 5.
So like an actuary.
Exactly. Like, well, I mean, they're doing all sorts of calculations and computation with numbers, but yeah, I think the stillness of it would be too much for me.
And if heaven existed and you get to those pearly gates or whatever is there, and whoever is there, because I never get it right. I don't know if it's Michael or God or whoever, what do you hope they would say?
You did okay.
I think you're doing more than just okay. But all right, fine. Shelly, Bells, thank you. Thank you so much. It's been so good. I'm so glad we made this work and it was to be.
Yeah,
So
pleasure.
thank you so much for joining.
Couldn't have you leave the country and not come on your show.
I know. And folks, thank you so much for joining, and we will see you next time. Have a good one. Ha! Shit. It's done.
That's all, folks, for today's episode of I Do What I Do. Biggest thank you to you for listening and to my guests for sharing their journey. I am Zara Bartels, and a super duper special shout out to the incredible folks that supported me on this creation. Keegan Simon, individual, for my logo and social graphics, Nikolai Labari for my theme music, and Andres Albert for being there and doing all the things while we recorded at TYX Studios in King's Cross, London. Walk good, keep doing what you do. Until next time.